Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Juliet Najjinda. I'm a tax manager with PricewaterhouseCoopers, and I'm here to talk to us about the opportunities that the African Continental Free Trade Area will present and what the entrepreneurs and SMEs in Uganda should do to harness those opportunities. So we'll start by talking about just having a brief overview of what the African Continental Free Trade Area is about, and most of these areas have been covered by the previous speakers, the keynote speaker. I believe where we are right now, we all have a good idea of what the African Continental Free Trade Area is about. I'll refer to it as the CFTA in the discussion. So we are all aware that Uganda has already signed up to the African Continental Free Trade Area. We are among the 55 countries. It's only Eritrea today that hasn't signed up. And as Ugandans, this brings a lot of excitement to us because very good things have been promised in the CFTA. Things around a single continental market for goods and services, free movement of goods, investment, capital, things around us being able to have a common customs union gradually, and elimination of the various trade, tariff and non-tariff barriers. So these are things that any business would be excited about getting, and we expect that the CFTA will take effect from 1st July 2020. That is a very short period of time from now because we are now getting into March. So that leaves us about another 3-4 months before we get into the agreement. But we also know that right now, the government is doing a lot of work behind the scenes to see to it that they set the scene for us to be ready, not only as Uganda, but the different participating countries. So there are a number of objectives that we intend to, that the CFTA intends to achieve. And these, again, I'll just hover over them because they've been mentioned by the previous speakers. The specific objectives around elimination of tariff and non-tariff barriers, the liberalization in trade, the cooperation in investment, capital, intellectual property, cooperation in the customs union, and establishment of a common dispute resolution mechanism. So those are some of the things that we expect to achieve when we get the CFTA up and running. And it will, and there are questions around how it will be operationalized. There are things that we need to know that need to be put in place before the CFTA can be up and running. So right now, Uganda belongs to 2 regional blocks, the East Africa East Africa Community and the Common and the COMESA region. So there have been questions around how the CFTA will interplay with the already existing regional blocks. And the information we have is that the CFTA in the beginning will work along the existing regional blocks as we finalize and get into the deep of the CFTA. So what's happening in the background right now, we expect that tariff concessions are being negotiated between countries. Each country is expected to present the tariff concessions showing which goods are going to be subject to reduced tariff rates. They expect that about 90% of the goods should be subject to reduced or no tariff rates at all. Then over a period of about 5 to 15 years, we should expect that progressively most of the goods should have reduced or no tariffs. Then we expect about 10% of the goods to be assigned sensitive status. And the reason for this is for the young markets like Uganda that still need to be protected. there are things that need to be assigned sensitive status. So by sensitive status, I mean, if you look, for example, right now at the East African the East African community, while we have a common customs area, a free customs area, there are items which, if you imported from a partner state within the East Africa community, you'd still need to pay duty. I'll give an example of right now in Uganda, if you're importing things like ketchup, they've recently been assigned sensitive status, and the government from the more advanced economies. And then we expect that there will be certain exclusions, goods that won't qualify under the CFTA reduced tariff regime. And there've been discussions around excluding things like the assembled motor vehicles, but this is all still work in progress. By the time the tariff concession is done, we'll be able to see what it is that will benefit from the reduced tariffs and what it is will be assigned sensitive or excluded status. And we expect rules of origin as well. The rules of origin are similar to what we have in the existing trade blocks, which will help us determine that goods confer origin within whichever partner state they are being imported from. We know that right now the Revenue Authority is very strict. If you're importing, say, from Egypt, they'll want to confirm that your goods confer origin within the rules of origin for COMESA. And I know that Irene Mulika's team is usually very, very aggressive on that. So even with the CFTA, we expect that similar restrictions will still apply. And of course, as it is with the usual trade agreements, we expect that there may be some conflicts. So we should expect a format for dispute resolution. And we also expect that the CFTA will take priority if there's any conflict between it and any other agreement that's existing between that partner state and between the trading partner states. So there are a number of opportunities that should be coming through, like the earlier speakers mentioned, things around increase in intra-African trade. Right now in Uganda, I think the biggest trade is with our fellow East African partner states, but we expect now to start tapping into large markets like Ethiopia that has over 100 million people. So because of the expected elimination of the tariff and non-tariff barriers, we should be able to tap into such space. Then the increase in prospects for export diversification, there's a lot expected as well in terms of how much that we should be able to export, and that will also compete with the other countries that are looking at Uganda as a market for their goods. Then we also expect liberalization in trade services. Currently, there's a lot of restrictions for different countries. If you want to go and trade in services, if you want to invest, we know economies like Liberia, if you put in money, there are restrictions around repatriation of your investment income. So such restrictions are expected to be dealt with as the countries negotiate right now, so that there's free movement in services, and also restriction on visa applications are expected to be done away with. So those are some of the opportunities, as well as the elimination of the tariff and non-tariff barriers that we've currently been experiencing. The tariff barriers being the tariffs, the taxes that apply. I think last week there was an article in the Business Daily in Kenya, and they were saying that they want to raise the East African communities looking at raising the import tariff rate from 25% to about 32%. So you can imagine right now if that is effected and you want to import something from, say, Nigeria, you'd have to be paying duty at 32%. But when the CFTA comes into place, hopefully by 1st July
2020, as has been communicated, then we expect that most of those tariffs will be done away with. So it will be a good space to be in, and the opportunities really look good from where we see them. So the question that we want to address this morning is what Uganda's entrepreneurs and SMEs should do to make most of the opportunities. The opportunities around the reduced tariff and non-tariff barriers, around the free movement of capital, around the free movement of investment, all those nice things that have been mentioned by the various speakers. So what do we need to do as SMEs? That's the question that we need to answer this morning. How do we prepare that? We need to ensure that we are in compliance with the various regulations. We are registered for taxes. Our books are being kept and the information is readily available. And we can see the commitment that the Investment Authority is making, that they are going to start using that information, that data, to be able to pull up synergies from different sectors. So it's going to become more important for us to ensure that we have the right regulatory compliance requirements in place for our SMEs. We can no longer operate as briefcase companies going forward if we are to compete at the regional level. The other important thing will be for us to make the most of the regional value chains. So right now, if you find that most of the entrepreneurs, I know a couple of companies that produce, there's a company that produces a very interesting product called Urban Gweke. I don't know if anyone of us here knows it, but they have a very nice packaging. And I recently found out that that packaging comes from China. So you can imagine for a product that's primarily maize that's been prepared in maybe roasted or fried, has to be packaged in something that has been imported from China. That obviously is increasing their cost of doing business in a way. China has been mentioned to be one of the cheaper markets, but now when the CFTA is implemented, there's a high likelihood that we are going to have cheaper sources for raw materials. Because right now, if you are to import those raw materials, say from West Africa or Ethiopia, with which we are not in a regional bloc, you'd be paying duty of up to 25%. So we need to start thinking which other countries within Africa we can get some of the raw materials cheaper. If you're in textile industry, you need to look at the people whom you can get cotton from at a cheaper price, as opposed to looking at importation of the various raw materials that you're using. Then, as entrepreneurs, we need to think of tapping into new markets in the region. I mentioned Ethiopia earlier because Ethiopia is not very far from Uganda. We expect that the free movement of people will help us with that's something that's going to help traders move to markets that were initially not very easy to access. So right now, if you look at, say, recently we had a case where one of our entrepreneurs in Uganda was exporting milk to Kenya and that milk was banned. So what happens under the CFTA is that entrepreneur now has an opportunity to extend to new markets, bigger markets that can consume the milk with less competition. But of course, then that also comes with the requirement for us to be, as entrepreneurs, to be very efficient and to ensure that we manage our costs, because the competition is going to be high as we trade with the various countries, with the various state parties. So as you produce your milk, the quality needs to be good, and you need to manage your costs so that you can compete favorably on the market with other countries that will be looking at providing the same product that you have. And the other thing that we need to do as entrepreneurs is skilling ourselves. making sure that we get the right skills to tap into the opportunities. Right now, you may find that it may be a bit challenging for you to bid for opportunities in other countries, because in many countries there are restrictions around, the local content. One of the shareholders has to be maybe from that country, restrictions around capital repatriation. But we expect that countries should be able to cooperate and do away with such restrictions, so that then even us entrepreneurs can go into those different markets and tap into the service provision opportunities that are there. And then we need to also focus on value addition, and this is where now UMA needs to come in and support, or the Investment Authority will need to come in and support the entrepreneurs. The other day there was a picture circulating on the social media of pineapples, very nice looking, very ripe pineapples. And someone had posed a question. The pineapples were going for as low as 1,000 shillings because there's so much of it in the market. And someone posed a question about what is happening to the pineapple farmer today, who has grown their pineapples and suddenly everyone has pineapples. So one of the key issues right now is for value addition. Pineapples, tomatoes, and things like that are very perishable. We've seen mangoes. Right now we are in the season for mangoes. So with UMI now focusing on drawing synergies of different entrepreneurs, we need to see how we can tap into the value addition chain, so that if one person is growing pineapples, then the other 5 people can pool capital to have a plant of maybe making juice which can be exported, as opposed to each one of us going alone. So you grow your acre of pineapples, then I have my 50 million, I also grow, pineapples. Instead of maybe 4 people coming up, pulling those synergies, putting together the 500 million you've been able to collect as entrepreneurs, and then having a plant for value addition. So those are some of the things we need to start thinking about. We can no longer go at it alone because competition is going to be stiff. And then the quality, there's no doubt or question about that. The quality of the goods that we produce as entrepreneurs will have to be at the world standard quality, because we have bigger economies like Egypt, like South Africa, that are also looking to play in the same space, and they're already doing well in terms of quality goods and mass production, and yet we cannot give an excuse of being less developed than them. So quality production is key. And the last one being the integration of local entrepreneurs, the different entrepreneurs working together in different sectors, pulling together capital in order to make the most of the opportunities in the CFTA. So there are some challenges that have been anticipated that will come with the CFTA, things around where the government needs to support us, around customs clearance systems, that need to now be updated to take into consideration the developments that are coming into place with the CFTA. The logistical challenges, right now we know if you're getting products from the villages, the roads, nightmare in some of the areas. We have a lot of farmers who have to pour away their milk because they are not able to access the markets in good time. Then there's going to be new competition, because right now Ugandan industries are protected. There are restrictions around some of the things that we import. Some of the items have been assigned sensitive status, so we don't get so much of them coming in. But when this protection goes away, it means developing countries like Uganda are going to be, might be faced with a lot of competition, and we need to be on top of our game to ensure that we don't lose out. And then there's also the level of investment that needs to push us forward. So, thank you.